They say black boys become men at 18. I became one at 18 when I found my mother blue and unconscious on the bathroom floor from an overdose while my father was at a hotel with his mistress. My name is Devin Moore, and this is the story of how I saved my mother's life and destroyed my father's reputation in the same night, and why I would make the same choice again tomorrow. The night that changed everything started like most Friday nights in our house. Daddy came home from his job at the accounting firm around 7 p.m., ate the dinner Mama had prepared, watched television for an hour, and then announced he was going out with some guys from work to watch a basketball game at a sports bar. "Do not wait up for me, Gloria," he told Mama as he put on his jacket and checked his reflection in the hallway mirror. "These games run late, and you know how Mike likes to talk afterward. I will probably be home around 2 or 3 a.m. Mama just nodded from where she was sitting on the couch, barely looking up from the pill bottle in her hand. She had been prescribed pain medication after a car accident 6 months earlier, and what had started as legitimate medical treatment had gradually become something more dangerous. "Okay, Charles," she said in that flat, distant voice that had become normal over the past few months. "Have fun." I was in my room working on college applications when Daddy left. I was 18, had just graduated high school in June, and was planning to start at the community college in the fall while working part-time at the Target distribution center. My parents had always talked about me being the first person in our family to get a college degree, but lately, those conversations had become less frequent as other problems took center stage. Mama's addiction to pain pills had been developing slowly over the past year. It started innocently enough after she was rear-ended at a stoplight and suffered whiplash and back injuries. The doctor prescribed oxycodone for the pain, and at first, she only took it as directed. But as the months went by, I noticed that she was taking the pills more frequently. She would refill her prescription earlier than she was supposed to, claiming she had lost pills or that the pain was worse than expected. She started visiting different doctors to get multiple prescriptions. She withdrew from family activities and spent more time alone in her bedroom. Daddy seemed oblivious to what was happening, or maybe he just did not want to acknowledge it. He worked long hours at his accounting job and spent most of his free time away from home, supposedly with coworkers or at the gym. "Your mama is just going through a rough time after the accident," he would say whenever I tried to talk to him about her increasing dependence on the medication. "She will be fine once she heals completely." But Mama was not healing. She was getting worse. That Friday evening, around 9 p.m., I heard Mama moving around in the kitchen. I went to check on her and found her washing down pills with a glass of wine, a dangerous combination that I knew she should not be mixing. "Mama, should you be drinking alcohol with your medication?" I asked. "Devin, baby, I am fine," she said, her words slightly slurred. "Just need to take the edge off. Been a long week. How many pills have you taken today?" "I do not know. The regular amount. Do not worry about me." But I was worried. I had been worried for months as I watched my mother slip further into addiction while my father pretended not to notice. Around 11 p.m., I heard a crash from the bathroom down the hall. I ran out of my room and found the bathroom door closed but not locked. "Mama, are you okay?" No response. I pushed open the door and found a scene that will be burned into my memory forever. Mama was lying on the bathroom floor, her lips blue, her breathing shallow and irregular. Empty pill bottles were scattered on the floor around her, along with an empty wine glass that had shattered when she fell. For a moment, I just stood there in shock, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Then training from a CPR class I had taken in health class kicked in, and I dropped to my knees beside her. "Mama, Mama, can you hear me?" Her eyes were half open but unfocused. Her skin was cold and clammy. Her breathing was so faint I could barely detect it. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. 911, what is your emergency? My mother, she overdosed on pills. She is barely breathing. Please send help. Okay, sir, I need you to stay calm. What is your address? I gave the dispatcher our address while checking Mama's pulse. It was weak and thready, and her breathing was getting even more shallow. "Sir, is she breathing?" "Barely. Please hurry. Help is on the way. I need you to turn her on her side in case she vomits." "Can you do that?" I carefully turned Mama onto her side, terrified that moving her might somehow make things worse. The dispatcher stayed on the line, giving me instructions and keeping me calm while I waited for the ambulance. "How long until they get here?" I asked, hearing the panic in my own voice. "They are about 3 minutes away. You are doing great. Just keep her on her side and monitor her breathing." As I knelt there on the bathroom floor holding my unconscious mother, I had a moment of clarity about our family situation. Mama was dying from an addiction that nobody had been willing to address directly. Daddy was supposedly at a sports bar watching a game, completely unaware that his wife was overdosing at home. Except I was pretty sure Daddy was not at any sports bar. 2 months earlier, I had borrowed Daddy's laptop to work on a school project when my computer crashed. I had not been snooping, but I could not help noticing that his email was open, and the most recent messages were from someone named Vanessa with subject lines like, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and "had such a good time at the hotel." At first, I tried to convince myself there was an innocent explanation. Maybe Vanessa was a co-worker, and the messages were being taken out of context. But the more I observed Daddy's behavior over the following weeks, the more certain I became that he was having an affair. His late nights at the office became more frequent. His basketball watching sessions with the guys always seemed to happen when Mama was too drugged up to notice or care where he was. He started dressing better, wearing cologne, and spending more time on his appearance before these supposed outings with coworkers. And now, while Mama lay dying on our bathroom floor, Daddy was probably at some hotel with his mistress, pretending to be a responsible husband who just needed a night out with the guys. The ambulance arrived within 5 minutes, though it felt like hours. The paramedics rushed into the bathroom and immediately went to work on Mama, checking her vital signs and preparing to administer medication. "What did she take?" one of the paramedics asked me. "Oxycodone, I think. And she had been drinking wine. I found these bottles on the floor." I handed him the empty pill bottles while the other paramedic inserted in 4-line and prepared to give Mama a medication called Narcan that reverses opioid overdoses. "Is she going to be okay?" I asked, my voice breaking. "We are doing everything we can." "How long ago did you find her like this?" "Maybe 10 minutes ago. I called 911 right away." "You did the right thing. That might have saved her life." They administered the Narcan and prepared to transport Mama to the hospital. Within a few minutes of receiving the medication, Mama's breathing improved and her color started to return to normal. She was not fully conscious, but she was no longer in immediate danger of dying. "Young man, you should ride with us to the hospital," one of the paramedics said as they loaded Mama onto a stretcher. "Is there another adult here? Parents or relatives we should contact?" "My father is out. I will try to reach him." As the ambulance raced toward the hospital with lights and sirens blaring, I tried calling Daddy's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 3 more times with the same result. At the hospital, I sat in the emergency room waiting area while doctors worked on Mama. A social worker came to talk to me about what had happened and asked questions about Mama's drug use and our family situation. "Devin, your mother is going to be okay," she told me gently. "The Narcan reversed the overdose, and she is stable now. But she is going to need help dealing with her addiction. This was a very serious overdose, and if you had not found her when you did, she very likely would have died." "I know," I said quietly. "Is there a father or other family member we can call? I have been trying to reach my father, but he is not answering his phone. What about grandparents, aunts, uncles? My grandmother lives in Florida. I can call her." But as I sat there in that hospital waiting room, I was not thinking about calling relatives for support. I was thinking about my father, who was supposed to be the head of our household, who was supposed to protect and care for his wife, but who was instead somewhere with his mistress while his son dealt with a life-threatening emergency alone. And I decided that I was done protecting his secrets. I opened Daddy's laptop, which I had grabbed from the house before leaving in the ambulance, and I started reading through his email correspondence with Vanessa. What I found confirmed everything I had suspected. They had been having an affair for over a year. They met at hotels regularly, sometimes during Daddy's supposed business trips. Vanessa worked at the same accounting firm as Daddy, which meant their relationship violated company policy about romantic relationships between co-workers. The emails included detailed discussions of their plans to be together, complaints about their respective spouses, and intimate messages that made me feel sick to read. There were also photos, pictures of them together at restaurants, hotels, and other locations where they were pretending to be a couple. But what made me angriest was an email thread from earlier that day, where Daddy and Vanessa were making plans for their Friday night date. "Can't wait to see you tonight," Vanessa had written. "Same hotel as last time." "Yes, I told Gloria I am watching the game with guys from work," Daddy had replied. "She is so out of it these days she probably will not even notice when I get home." He knew Mama was struggling with addiction, and instead of helping her, he was using her vulnerability as cover for his affair. As I sat there reading these emails, I felt something shift inside me. I had spent the last few months being a passive observer of my family's dysfunction, hoping that the adults would eventually figure out how to fix things. But the adults in my life were not fixing anything. Mama was spiraling into addiction, and Daddy was abandoning both of us to carry on an affair with his co-worker. I was 18 years old, legally an adult, and I realized that if I wanted things to change, I was going to have to be the one to force that change. At 2:30 a.m., Daddy finally called me back. "Devin, I just saw your missed calls. What is going on?" "Mama overdosed on pain pills. She is in the hospital." There was a long pause. "Is she okay?" "She almost died. I found her unconscious on the bathroom floor." "Where were you?" "I told you, I was watching the game with guys from work. My phone was on silent." "Daddy, Mama almost died tonight, and you were not here." "I am coming to the hospital right now." "Which hospital?" I gave him the information, and he arrived about 30 minutes later. He was dressed casually, but his hair was slightly messed up and his shirt was wrinkled. Not the way someone looks after watching a basketball game at a sports bar. "Where is your mother?" he asked when he found me in the waiting room. "They moved her to a room on the 4th floor. She is stable but still sedated." "What happened?" "She took too many pills and mixed them with alcohol. If I had not found her when I did, she would be dead." Daddy sat down heavily in one of the waiting room chairs. "This is my fault. I should have been paying more attention to how many pills she was taking. You should have been home, period. Devin, I know you are upset. Where were you really tonight, Daddy?" He looked at me sharply. "I told you I was watching. You were not watching any basketball game. You were with Vanessa." The color drained from his face. "How do you?" "I read your emails. I know you have been having an affair for over a year. I know you were at a hotel with her tonight while Mama was dying at home. Devin, you do not understand." "I understand perfectly. Mama has been struggling with addiction for months, and instead of helping her, you have been using her problems as an excuse to cheat on her. It is not that simple. Your mother and I have been having problems. Every marriage has problems, Daddy. But most husbands do not abandon their wives when they are sick and vulnerable. Keep your voice down. This is a hospital. I do not care who hears this conversation. I am tired of pretending everything is fine when it is not." We sat in tense silence for several minutes. Finally, Daddy spoke again. "What do you want me to do, Devin? I want you to be honest. With Mama, with yourself, with everyone. No more lies, no more sneaking around, no more pretending to be someone you are not. And if I do not..." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshots I had taken of his emails with Vanessa. "Then I send these to your boss. I looked up the company policy on your firm's website. Employees who engage in romantic relationships with coworkers are supposed to disclose those relationships to human resources. You and Vanessa never disclosed anything, which means you are both violating company policy. You would not. Try me. I just watched Mama almost die while you were out with your mistress. I am done protecting your secrets. Daddy stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him trying to figure out if I was bluffing. But I was not bluffing. I was tired of being the only person in our family who was willing to face the truth about what was happening. Devin, if you send those emails to my boss, I will lose my job. How do you think we are going to pay for this house, your college, your mother's medical treatment? Maybe we downsize. Maybe I work full-time instead of going to college right away. But at least we will be living honestly instead of in a house built on lies. You are 18 years old. You do not understand how the real world works. I understand that the real world does not give you permission to abandon your family just because things get difficult. The next morning, the social worker assigned to Mama's case called a family meeting to discuss treatment options. Mama was awake but groggy, and she cried when she realized how close she had come to dying. Mrs. Moore, the social worker said gently, we need to talk about getting you into a treatment program for your addiction. What happened last night was a serious medical emergency, and it will happen again if we do not address the underlying problem. I did not mean to take so many pills, Mama said weakly. I just wanted the pain to stop. I understand, but prescription opioid addiction is a disease, and it requires professional treatment. We have several excellent programs in the area that specialize in helping people recover from this type of addiction. How long would I have to be in treatment? Mama asked. Most residential programs are 30 to 90 days, depending on the severity of the addiction and how well you respond to treatment. I cannot be gone from home for that long. What about Devin? What about my job? Mrs. Moore, I said, taking her hand. I almost lost you last night. Your job and the house do not matter if you are not alive to enjoy them. But Devin, your college, will still be there when you get better. Right now, the only thing that matters is you getting the help you need. Daddy had been silent throughout this conversation, but finally he spoke up. Gloria, Devin is right. You need treatment. We will figure out the rest. Over the next few days, we made arrangements for Mama to enter a residential treatment program about an hour away from our home. Her employer was supportive and agreed to hold her job for her while she was in treatment. My grandmother flew up from Florida to help me manage the house while Mama was away. But I had not forgotten about Daddy's affair or my threat to expose it to his employer. 2 weeks after Mama entered treatment, I was going through Daddy's laptop again to find some financial documents Grandma needed for insurance purposes. That is when I discovered that Daddy's affair with Vanessa was still ongoing. Despite everything that had happened with Mama's overdose, despite his promises to be more present and supportive, Daddy was still communicating with Vanessa and making plans to see her. I know the timing is terrible, he had written in an email dated just 3 days earlier. But I miss you. Gloria is going to be in treatment for at least a month. Maybe we can start seeing each other again once things settle down. I sat there staring at that email and realized that Daddy was not going to change his behavior unless he faced real consequences for his actions. He had almost lost his wife, had been confronted by his son, and had promised to do better, but he was still choosing his mistress over his family. That evening, I composed an email to the human resources director at Daddy's accounting firm. I attached screenshots of the email correspondence between Daddy and Vanessa, along with a brief explanation of their relationship and the company policy they were violating. I am writing to report a violation of your company's policy regarding romantic relationships between coworkers, I wrote. My father, Charles Moore, has been having an undisclosed affair with his coworker Vanessa Williams for over a year. I am providing evidence of this relationship because I believe it is important for the company to know that 2 of its employees are violating company policy. I read through the email 3 times, my finger hovering over the send button. Once I sent this email, there would be no going back. Daddy would almost certainly lose his job. Our family finances would be thrown into chaos. Daddy would probably never forgive me. But I thought about Mama lying on that bathroom floor, blue and barely breathing. I thought about all the nights Daddy had claimed to be working late or watching games with coworkers while he was actually with Vanessa. I thought about the lies and deception that had become normal in our family. And I hit send. The response came faster than I expected. The next morning, Daddy received a call from Human Resources asking him to come to the office immediately for a meeting. When he came home that afternoon, he looked like he had aged 10 years. "They fired me," he said, sitting down heavily at the kitchen table. "Both me and Vanessa. Immediate termination for violating company policy and for creating a hostile work environment." "What does that mean?" Grandma asked. "It means they do not have to pay severance or unemployment benefits. It means my reputation in the accounting field is destroyed. It means I am 45 years old and unemployed with no prospects." He looked across the table at me with anger and hurt in his eyes. "This was you, was not it? You sent those emails to my company. I gave you a chance to end the affair and focus on helping Mama. You chose not to. So you destroyed my career? You destroyed your own career when you decided to have an affair with a co-worker and then continued it even after your wife nearly died. You had no right. I had every right. I am part of this family too, and I am tired of watching you tear it apart with your lies and selfishness." Grandma, who had been listening to this exchange with growing understanding, spoke up. "Charles, did you really have an affair while Gloria was struggling with addiction? Mama, you do not understand the situation. I understand that my daughter-in-law almost died while you were with another woman. I understand that Devin had to deal with that emergency alone because you could not be bothered to answer your phone. And I understand that Devin gave you a chance to make things right, and you chose to continue your affair instead. This is not your business. My daughter-in-law's life is absolutely my business. Devin's well-being is my business. And whether you like it or not, the consequences of your choices are now my business because I am the one helping hold this family together while you figure out your priorities." Over the next few weeks, the full impact of Daddy's job loss became apparent. We had to cut expenses dramatically, sell one of our cars, and dip into savings to cover the mortgage and other bills. Daddy spent his days sending out resumes and trying to explain to potential employers why he had been terminated from his previous job. But something else happened during those weeks that I had not expected. With no job to go to and nowhere to hide, Daddy finally had to confront the reality of what he had done to our family. He started attending family therapy sessions at Mama's treatment center, where therapists forced him to be honest about his affair and its impact on Mama's mental health and addiction. He had to sit in a room and listen to Mama describe how his emotional abandonment had contributed to her increasing reliance on pills to numb her pain. "I felt like I was losing my husband," Mama said during one particularly difficult session that I attended. "You were physically present in the house, but emotionally you had checked out. And when I tried to talk to you about my pain or my problems, you would find a reason to leave or change the subject. I did not know how to help you," Daddy said, his voice breaking. "Your addiction scared me, and I did not know what to do about it. So I buried myself in work and other distractions." "Other distractions? You mean your affair with Vanessa?" "Yes. I am not proud of it, Gloria. I was weak and selfish, and I hurt you at a time when you needed me most." "You almost killed her, Daddy," I said, unable to stay silent. "If I had not found Mama when I did, she would have died while you were at a hotel with your mistress." "I know, Devin. I know. I will have to live with that knowledge for the rest of my life." Mama spent 60 days in the residential treatment program, and by the time she came home, she was a different person. She was clear-eyed, focused, and determined to maintain her sobriety. She was also honest about how Daddy's affair had affected her mental health and contributed to her addiction. "I am not saying Charles's affair caused my addiction," she told me one evening shortly after coming home. "I made my own choices about taking pills and drinking. But his emotional abandonment definitely made me feel more alone and hopeless, which made it easier to turn to substances for comfort." "Are you going to stay married to him?" "I do not know yet, baby. We are doing couples therapy to see if we can rebuild trust and repair our relationship. But I am not making any promises. He does not deserve you, Mama. Maybe not. But marriage is complicated, and addiction is complicated, and sometimes people make terrible choices when they are overwhelmed by life. I am not ready to give up on our marriage yet, but I am also not willing to accept being treated the way he treated me before. Daddy eventually found a new job at a smaller accounting firm for significantly less money than he had been making before. We had to downsize to a smaller house, sell the nicer car, and cut back on expenses. My college plans were delayed by a year while I worked full-time to help with family expenses. But something unexpected happened during this difficult period. Our family actually became closer and more honest with each other than we had been in years. Without his high-paying job and busy social life to hide behind, Daddy had to actually be present with his family. He started cooking dinner, helping around the house, and attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings with Mama to support her recovery. Mama, free from the fog of addiction and committed to her sobriety, began to rediscover who she was beyond being someone's wife or someone in pain. She started painting again, a hobby she had abandoned years earlier. She got involved with a support group for people recovering from opioid addiction. And I learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do for the people you love is refuse to enable their destructive behavior, even when refusing means causing short-term pain and disruption. Devin, Daddy said to me one evening about 6 months after Mama came home from treatment, I need to tell you something. What? I was angry at you for a long time for sending those emails to my company. I felt like you had betrayed me and destroyed my career. I know, but I have come to realize that you probably saved our family. If you had not forced me to face consequences for my actions, I would have kept lying and cheating until Gloria either died from her addiction or divorced me. You made me choose between my comfortable lies and my family, and even though I resented it at the time, it was the best thing that could have happened. I did not do it to punish you, Daddy. I did it because I could not watch Mama die while you pretended everything was fine. I understand that now, and I want you to know that I am proud of the man you have become. You were more mature at 18 than I was at 45. I just did what needed to be done. That is exactly what I mean. You saw a problem, and you took action to fix it, even though taking action meant going against your father and potentially destroying our family's financial security. That took courage. 2 years after Mama's overdose, our family looks very different than it did before that terrible night. We live in a smaller house in a less expensive neighborhood. Daddy makes less money and has less prestigious job. I am finally starting college 2 years later than planned, while continuing to work part-time. But Mama has been sober for over 2 years and attends recovery meetings regularly. Daddy and Mama are still married, though their relationship looks different now, more honest, less dependent on appearances and pretense. And I have learned that being a man sometimes means making hard choices that hurt in the short term, but protect the people you love in the long term. The most important lesson I learned from that experience is that loyalty to family does not mean protecting their secrets or enabling their destructive behavior. Real loyalty means caring enough about someone to hold them accountable, even when accountability is painful. Mama could have died that night on the bathroom floor. Daddy could have continued his affair while Mama struggled with addiction. Our family could have continued pretending everything was fine while slowly falling apart behind closed doors. Instead, I made a choice to force honesty and accountability, and that choice saved my mother's life and gave my family a chance to rebuild on a foundation of truth instead of lies. Devin, Mama said to me recently during one of our conversations about that difficult period, "You know what I am most grateful for?" "What?" "That you loved me enough to save my life, even when I was too sick to save myself. And that you loved your father enough to force him to face consequences that ultimately made him a better man. That is what real love looks like, not protecting people from the consequences of their actions, but caring enough to let them face those consequences so they can grow and change." Today, Mama volunteers at a treatment center helping other people who are struggling with opioid addiction. She shares her story with newly admitted patients and lets them know that recovery is possible. Daddy works at his new job and continues to attend therapy to address the issues that led to his affair and emotional abandonment of his family. He and Mama are rebuilding their marriage slowly, with help from a couples counselor. And I am in college studying social work with a focus on addiction counseling and family systems. I want to help other families who are dealing with addiction and betrayal, because I know from personal experience how difficult it is to navigate those challenges. The night I found Mama unconscious on the bathroom floor, I had to make split-second decisions that ended up determining whether she lived or died. But the decision to expose Daddy's affair was not made in a moment of panic. It was a calculated choice to prioritize long-term healing over short-term comfort. Both decisions were necessary. Calling 911 saved Mama's physical life. Exposing Daddy's affair saved our family's emotional life by forcing honesty and accountability that had been missing for too long. Sometimes being a man means calling for help when someone you love is in crisis. Sometimes being a man means forcing people you love to face the consequences of their actions, even when those consequences are painful. But always, being a man means choosing what is right over what is easy, what is honest over what is comfortable, and what will heal over what will hide. The night Mama overdosed, I became the kind of man who saves lives and demands accountability. And I have never regretted those choices, even when they cost me time, money, and temporary peace in my family relationships. Because some things are worth fighting for, even when fighting means standing against people you love. Some truths are worth telling, even when telling them destroys comfortable lies. Some people are worth saving, even when saving them requires you to make hard choices that no 18-year-old should have to make. Mama's life was worth saving. Our family's integrity was worth fighting for. And the temporary pain of honesty was worth enduring to create a foundation for real healing and authentic relationships. That is what I learned the night Mama overdosed, and Daddy was with his mistress. That is what I carry with me as I continue to grow into the man I want to become. There are more stories like mine, guys who refused to stay silent, who broke the cycle instead of repeating it. 2 of them are right here on your screen. Click the one that speaks to your own fight. And if you want to walk with a community that knows sometimes saving your family means stopping them, tap the bell. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.